Hello, Sarah Sabin, transformational leadership and business coach here. And today I am really excited to be interviewing for my Leading in the Modern Way video interview series, Narinder Khattoare, who is CEO of Kuflink. Narinder, welcome. And would you like to introduce yourself briefly to my audience?
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for having me on. So I'm Narinder Khattoare. I'm the CEO of Kuflink. I've been CEO here for the last 5 years. Kuflink is a investing and lending platform. So we provide a platform which allows investors to come in to get a yield on their investments, which is backed by property, UK real estate assets.
Awesome. And I'd like to get into a little bit more about how you came to be CEO of Kuflink. Could you tell me a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So, in 2008, 2009, when it was the last financial crisis, I was working in the city. I was made redundant, but I came across a family-owned business based out here in Kent, just outside of London, that were looking to enter the market as an alternative lender. We got talking for a number of years, and then eventually I left my job at that time, which was doing high-end pawnbroking in the city, to move locally, because I believed in the strategy and the vision of the individuals that were setting up this business. And it was going into real estate assets, which I really wanted to get back involved with, getting myself away from high-end pawnbroking type assets.
Hmm. Okay, so you came along into Cufflink because you believed in the mission and the content of what they were doing. So how did you progress to CEO level?
Yeah, so initially when I first joined, I was literally just a sales guy on the road. So I had a black book of contacts of brokers. So I'd go and see the brokers, talk about our new lending initiatives that we were launching in the UK. It was different to your high street lending. It was based mainly on asset-backed lending rather than based on income. It was a lot more higher in rate of interest back then that we were charging to what we have been in the last 12, 18 months. But yeah, I was on the road as a salesperson, progressed to head of sales, built the sales team, and then worked my way into operations role, and recruited and built a number of the individuals that are still currently involved in the business from day one, and then went over to as CEO back in 2017, 18.
Okay. So it's not necessarily the typical founder journey, but you were obviously integral in building the business to where it is today.
Yeah, I've been heavily involved, from day one, from strategy on products, operations, marketing, building the investor platform. I mean, obviously, I haven't done this myself, right? So there's a number of key people involved in the business that we regularly meet, and like I said, those number of those people are still here from day one. They believe in the project, and there's some goals that we want to achieve over the next 2 to 3 years, which are quite aggressive, but they're very innovative as well.
Mm. So I'm interested because you basically transitioned from two roles that are quite different from each other. Um, how have you developed your leadership capacity as you've transitioned in your roles?
Yeah, that's another interesting one. So, I mean, I've worked under some very interesting people during my time in sales. I mean, I've learned how not to do things, by taking on board how people have struggled to motivate individuals to bring products to market. I've also seen people how you should do it, right? To engage everybody on the journey, on the vision. So I'll take snippets of, key characteristics from individuals. I see things on TV, right? I follow things on TV. If you follow things online, I listen to certain people online on YouTube, etc., and see how they do things. And my mind is always working, right? So even when people think, at 8:30 at night, when I'm running around after the kids, my mind is forever thinking of strategy. How could I make things better? Even watching a documentary or watching a movie, how things do, certain people do certain things, to incorporate that into their work.
Mm. Yes, it can be incredibly difficult to switch off, can't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's key, right? So as a leader, you need to find the time to switch off. So those are moments I do pick throughout the day and throughout the month and throughout the year where there's, planned holidays in advance. It's not, I've got to get a holiday. It's a holiday that's planned in advance with the family, kids, where I switch off. So, and the key to this is, you need to have a team of leaders within your core group, right? So you can't have one leader. There needs to be a team that you can rely on that allows you to switch off. And they should only really reach out to you if there's a crisis as such. And that allows me to switch off, right? So when I come back into the office, I've had a few weeks off away from the office. I'm energized, ready to go. And I feel as if I've missed out on things because the team's not involved me in anything because it's business as usual. And that's key, right? Leader, that you have that core group of individuals that you can rely on. There's going to be mistakes that you make, which is fine, but the key thing is you've got to learn from those mistakes, and then it's about how you grow forward from there.
100% agree on that. And, it's a good acid test if you can step away on holiday, completely switch off, and the ship continues sailing as usual, then you're doing a good job as a CEO.
Yeah.
Because essentially, that's the point that you want to get to. It's about developing the teams, the people, so that everything runs without you. And then, of course, they have the autonomy and self-responsibility as well, because you're not
Yeah.
always checking up on them.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's a big thing for me. So I have weekly meetings with the senior leadership team here, right? And I will always question them and say, right, what would you do if it's all about, the way I would do things? That's wrong, right? So I want people to come forward with ideas, and sometimes they might be great, right? And sometimes you might just question and think that's ludicrous, but how would what is the right thing or the wrong thing? I mean, if it was the right thing every time, I wouldn't be on a call with you, Sarah. I'll probably be in Barbados, with my Bermuda shorts on, sitting on the beach, drinking some beers, and I'm done with life, right? But we're forever learning as individuals. And sometimes a new person comes into your leadership team or a new person that joins your business, and you learn something new every day. And it doesn't mean that somebody's who's been in the business for 20-30 years in the industry that knows everything. Every day is a new day. You learn new things. AI, chat GPT is huge at the moment. I think that's a massive shock to every business. It is for us as well. How do you incorporate that into your business, into your strategy going forward? I think there's business that I've never even thought about it, right? And everyone's trying to think, right, okay, how do we do it? So we've also created a little innovation hub internally. And there's key individuals that we're looking at and thinking about what do we bring to the market. I know at some point you're going to probably ask me, and I'm going to say, sir, I can't tell you at the moment because it's strictly confidential. But it's something innovative that we're doing, that we want to bring into the marketplace, right? And it incorporates, chat GPT. It really makes people in the business think outside the box than
Mm.
your standard way of just doing things.
I love that idea of having an innovation hub in an SME, because the reality of business today is it's changing faster than ever. And if you don't keep up, you will die at some point in the future. It could be near future, it could be distant future.
Yeah.
So, a lot of startups and companies do obviously focus on innovation, but to formalize it into actually we have an innovation hub who are specifically looking at that is a really interesting way of making sure that that happens.
Yeah. And I mean, look, when we first came to the marketplace, as a peer-to-peer lender, I would say that we were one of the more innovative lenders that were in the marketplace. Although there was other people in the industry already, that were well established, that were much bigger than us in terms of the volume that they were underwriting and putting into the marketplace. But what we found was what we were doing, although we were I mean, minute compared to the size of some of these businesses, they were looking at us. They were looking at, right, Cufflink's come to the market. Why have they come to the marketplace? What are they doing? They're so different. And what we found was they were copying some of our ideas, right? Not directly, but indirectly. You can get a flavor of the kind of stuff they were doing. So it made us sit there and think and take a step back and say, look, we've got a great team here, right? People are looking at us. We're not huge, but we're doing something right where we can grow, uh, put things into the marketplace, key features on our platform, which nobody of any of one of our competitors were doing at that time. So what we're doing, this innovation hub, what it would do is, um, I've been boring the life out of all the guys in the office here, right? The team here, and saying that we're still at, Mark 1 as far as I'm concerned, like a Mark 1 Golf GTI, right? So I want to get it from Mark 1 now to take it to Mark 10, right? So how do we move that forward? How do we expedite all that? How do we bring that to the marketplace over the next 12 months? So there's certain features we'll bring in that nobody in the marketplace is doing. There's going to be certain types of product that we'll bring into the marketplace as well. Yeah, don't get me wrong, it's been difficult because you're going through high inflation, base rate has gone up, but over a course of time, how many years or a year, I don't know how that's long that's going to be, they will come down, and there's opportunity. So now is a time for business to sit there and think, right, okay, when rates do eventually come down, when inflation is under control, what do? You don't want to be in a situation where you wait for the rate to come down, you wait for inflation to come down, and then you start going on strategy. Your strategy has to start now when you're on the downward. So then when you're on the floor, and the rates have gone down to a reasonable rate level, sorry, and then you can really hit the ground running because you've already got the wheels in motion.
And I see that as a really important part of leadership, foreseeing what is coming down the road.
Yeah,
Because if you purely focus on the now, you're quite right. By the time you actually get to that point, it
yeah,
might be too late to do it.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So if you had to think about what's the most pressing obstacle on your mind at the moment in relation to Cufflink, what would that be?
Look, in terms of pressing you got to stay relevant, right? So you got to make sure as a business that you're still doing what you're supposed to be doing, and then there's products and features and stuff and things that you're going to bring to the marketplace that can allow you to grow, right? The other thing is products. What products are working, right? So at the moment, you may have a product which is, I mean, we had a product that we launched last year, which was a buy-to-let product, right? And we had to pull that from the market because of the rate increases. It just didn't make sense. And even currently now, if you was to still have that product, you would be struggling. If anything, you'd be losing money on that product. So the key thing for us is looking at how do we bring, or what do we bring to the marketplace which works for us as a business, which is the right product for borrowers, which is the right product for investors, and what's the right product for us as a business that makes us stay relevant in this marketplace at the moment, rather than totally stop lending altogether, which we've never done, right? So we went through challenging times during COVID. Some of our competitors just totally stopped lending, and we was like, why should we stop lending, right? So people, I know they're sitting at home, scared of this virus, but people are still going to earn a living, right? So builders, these SME property developers, we were still there actively lending to these guys during that period of time. That allows them to put, um, you know, people out working still, and also help the UK economy build properties during that time, right? So we were still there. So we don't mind challenges. Like I said, we've got a great team here that think outside the box. There was a couple of features that we brought on our platform, because money was drying up. No one really wanted to put money into property deals. But then it came to a point where it was like, well, I'm putting all my money in the bank. The bank's giving me 0.1% return on my money. I need to make the most of my money. I'm sitting there on furlough. I've got wads of cash sitting in my savings account. I'm better off out lending it and helping the UK economy grow. And we saw a big influx of money, right, from a lot of our investors, and saying, look, we can get a better rate of return by putting money on your platform. And these investors have stayed with us. Some of them were new to us during the COVID period, and they've grown substantially with the amount of money they've deployed on the platform. Right, don't get me wrong, it's a bit challenging now because, they can get a higher rate, with a high street bank at 5.25%, in some cases 6%. But we're still offering deals on the platform at 7, 8, 9s, which is a great return on your money, and is backed by UK real estate.
Yes, I mean, obviously interest rates in savings bank accounts are a lot more attractive than they were a few years ago, but if you can outcompete there, then it comes down to why wouldn't people want to do that? It's about offering value, right? And I also want to pick up on the point that often in downturns, so whether that was COVID, whether that's in a recessionary period, a lot of companies can be like, oh my God, panic stations, we're going to down tools and just think for ages about how we're going to repivot. It's about taking action, because in every economy, and even during COVID, there were businesses that you wouldn't expect to have succeeded that did. And again, being able to pivot is going to become increasingly important.
I mean, I think that's one of the key things for particularly people like us, right? So we're an alternative lender. We're not, the size of a high street bank where they've got, thousands of staff, which is great. We have no aspiration to take our head count to, 1,000 or 500 or even 100, right? So what we want to do is be able to stay nimble, and agile. So as and when market turns either way, whether it goes down or up, that we can be very quick to the marketplace to bring products in, because it doesn't need too many people, right? So what we found is bringing more people into the mix. You're not actually doing what you're supposed to be doing. What you end up doing is having meetings than actually being productive, right? So meetings should be cut short. They shouldn't be, several hours long. There should be a key structure in place, what you're trying to achieve. You go away from the meeting, everyone knows what is expected of them. And then we put targets in place, which are realistic, right? If you're bringing a product to market, go today, I want to bring that product to market within a couple of months. I don't want to wait half a year or 12 months. We haven't got time. We've missed the boat, right? So you've got to be able to stay at a certain level, which we're happy, which allows you to grow from here to there. But that's quick growth, but you're an agile business. And that's how you bring in, AI. That would help, because it's quick. And, staff, you have staffing issues sometimes as well, right? So there's no, you've got to rely more on tech, and that we're a tech business. There's certain elements of our business which is very manual, which we're trying to fix at the moment, which makes us more techie than what we should be. But those are key features and things that we're working on internally as a business.
I'd love to know more about how you personally define strong leadership and how you see it impacting the growth of Kuflink.
So for me, right, what I define as a strong leadership is if you're having a meeting, or if you're going into a board meeting, or if you're going externally, talking to yourself, to the press, there should be a team that at any given moment should have trust in each other, that can represent the business, that can represent myself as a leader. That shows signs of good, leader myself. So what I say to the team is say, look, if something happens to me tomorrow, who stands in for me? I've got two individuals that I know that will stand in straight away. They know the way I am, the way I think, the way the business needs to be, what expected of me, what is expected from the business. And then I say to them, I say, right, if your two are going to stand in for me, who are the people that are going to stand in behind you? Right. So forever it's going to be succession planning, right? So that's key. Succession is key with any business. And I think a lot of businesses fall short where you find individuals who get themselves to a senior position, but then they don't look behind them saying, right, okay, who is the person, if something was to happen to me today, who is that person that's going to pick up the pieces? Because as far as I'm concerned, it should be business as usual, regardless of who is, at the top and who's in the senior leadership team. the business should be able to continue. The processes a lot in, from top to bottom, the processes should be easily, mapped out, easily understandable. People know who's accountable and who's not. And the key thing here is succession planning, right? So I always go 2 layers. So myself, below one person below me, and then the person below them. So, and that's how I set the whole team up. So even if you've got somebody, for example, as a junior in the team, I'm always thinking, right, if that person was, not to come in tomorrow to work, is a junior person, who can overlap that role. So there's going to be some sort of utility type, operator within the business that can do 2 roles. So that's how I always map that out as a key driver of a good leader and a good leadership team.
Yeah, and I really like that, and that's further evidence of your future focus.
Yeah,
because again, a short-sighted way of thinking about it is, well, I'm doing this and I have to be involved in everything because I'm CEO. But unless you take steps to extricate yourself and to think about who's coming up the chain, as you say, anything could happen, and then it's business and game over.
yeah.
And
I'll tell you, sorry, one of the interesting things is, it happened earlier today, and I see some of the team having a meeting without me, and I was like, "Well, guys, what's going on here?" They're like, "We don't need you in the meeting. You've told us to take leadership, and we are." And I was like, "Okay, that's fine." I was like, "Well, what do I do for this spare hour I've got of my day?" So I went out for a walk, which was great. It's good to see, the team taking the initiative and doing it themselves, and they come back in. Like I said, we have a great, exco team. We sit down on a weekly basis, and it gets a bit heated at times, which is great. And I say to them that we walk in as one team and we walk out as one, but any problems and challenges we have stays in the room. We align all the issues here, but we're united as one, right? And that's what we are. And the team can do it without me,
and a fundamental part of that unification is the word that you use, trust. Trust is so fundamental to everything, to a feeling of psychological safety, where people feel safe to express their opinions and give constructive feedback without, fear of retribution. And it's also integral to communication as well, because if the trust doesn't exist, then that means that communication is obviously not where it needs to be either, because things aren't being said.
Yep.
Okay. Final question. If you went back in time, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
I think the key one here would be learn from your mistakes, right? So you're young, you seem invincible, but I made a lot of mistakes, right? Growing up, through uni, through some of my first jobs that I did, and learn from them, right? Take things away from that and say, right, okay, I did this wrong, right? What could I have done better, right? Why did that go wrong? Did I put a strategy in place? Did I think long and hard about it? Or because you're young, you just don't care, and that's the kind of things that I try to tell my children. I say, look, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with making a mistake. It's absolutely fine. But what have you learned? That's the key thing. If you learn from it, you will grow, and then you won't be afraid to make decisions. Because I think there's a lot of people that just get afraid to make decisions, and there's nothing wrong with it, right? That's the only way you prosper in life. You learn, you make some mistakes, but learn from those mistakes.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. And to come back to the decision-making point, just to close out this conversation, one of the number one habits of really successful people is that they make decisions. And it seems like a really simple thing to say, but a lot of people don't make decisions. So that's how you get meetings where there are no action steps and nothing really happens or progresses forward. Well, thank you, Narinder. I really enjoyed this conversation today.
Thank you.
And I hope you did too, my listeners. If you would like to be involved in the Leading in the Modern Way video interview series, please do reach out to me. Thank you. Bye for now.